Hope everyone's enjoyed the morning sessions and afternoon session today. My name is Jay Carvey. I am a solutions consultant with Progress Software. Been with the company for around a year, and I've had a lot of fun so far. It's been great to learn about different technologies. You heard this morning about OpenEdge, Data Direct. I've got to work with the CMS, Sitefinity, so it's great to work for a company that has such a breadth of different technologies. I was hired on a year ago to help with our mobility unit. So that's going to include Kinvey, the backend as a service, as well as the Kinvey associated products, that being Studio, our drag and drop builder, and Progress Health Cloud, which is our HIPAA compliant version of Kinvey. And today we're going to be talking about Kinvey Chat. So I'm going to go over some use cases of chatbots, talk about where we've come historically, and some use cases these days that we see at chatbots, and we'll dive into the Kinvey Chat solution. So since I started at Progress, I've really seen a massive interest in chatbot development platforms. It was really kind of the first thing that I sunk my teeth into. We heard of new business use cases. We heard of technical debt associated with outdated and solutions that weren't really fit for our customers. And we also heard of existing customers using one of our portfolio products who wanted to learn more about chat. Now, Kinvey Chat is also a great solution for our ISVs and partners who are looking to build chatbots for their own respective customers. So it's obvious to see the potential of chatbots these days. They're available all the time, 24/7, provide immediate assistance. They can be reached virtually anywhere. They can take a significant load off your customer service team. And research that I found dictated that baby boomers are just as likely to expect benefits from chatbots as millennials. So we'll see a significant impact of chatbots within the next 5 years. And they've really come a long way since the early 1950s, which is where we start our story with this guy. This guy is the inventor of the first chatbot. His name's Joseph Weizenbaum. He was part of MIT's AI lab, and he implemented his bot with the goal of simulating the work of a psychotherapist. So he used substitution methodology and pattern matching, and his goal was to conquer the Turing test. The Turing test is the ability of a bot to be indistinguishable from the behavior of a human. So Joseph Weizenbaum, his goal was to provide this psychotherapist bot presence, and he was shocked to see that people were surprisingly candid with his bot, which he called Eliza. And here's a sample conversation that I found that someone had with Eliza. The Eliza bot did not pass the Turing test, but from the 1950s, I think it was pretty good for that time. So after Eliza, there was more research that went into bots, all with that same goal of passing the Turing test. We saw Perry. Perry was the complete opposite of Eliza. Perry was a paranoid schizophrenic. And Perry was consistently afraid of the police, suspicious of everybody around him. And on occasions, Perry actually conversed with Eliza. So you can go on the internet and find those chat logs that occur between Perry and Eliza. And there was Jabberwacky. Jabberwacky actually looks more like a schizophrenic than Perry does, I think. But Jabberwacky was conceived as a happy-go-lucky bot. More, let's say, less on the psychology side than Perry or Eliza. Dr. Sabaitso was built for MS-DOS, and it actually came packaged with some of the Sound Blaster sound cards from the 90s. So that was kind of my first foray into computers, is putting together a computer and buying a sound card. And so I never ran across Dr. Sabaitso, but that was one of the first bots to do voice to chat with the sound card. Now, Alice was an important invention in the history of chatbots, because with Alice, the inventors of Alice invented a schema for creating chatbots. So they used an XML schema to specify the conversation heuristics, and this came out in the mid-90s. So for the first time, someone had come up with a framework for developing bots. You could use this, what was called AI ML, artificial intelligence machine language, I think it is, to create bots in this framework. It was unable to pass a Turing test, but it did inspire this. So I'm sure all of you probably remember this movie, Her. The director, Spike Jonze, was actually inspired by Alice in the early 2000s. He wrote a couple short stories about the idea of a human falling in love with a bot, and then he finally got to make the movie, and I thought it was a pretty good movie. So it's pretty interesting to see how bots have gone from purely research into romance, and also these days we see chatbots heavily in the B2C world. So you see a lot of the big customer service companies. Starbucks has a bot where you can order your coffee from. It'll tell you when and where it's going to be ready. Lyft is using a bot so people can book rides, and will actually proactively reach out to a rider and a driver if they get below a 3-star rating. So it's trying to automate the customer service aspect, and then the Lyft bot can actually transfer to a human operator if the issue is still not resolved. The Spotify bot's interesting in that it uses, it's deployed on Facebook Messenger's platform, and you can send 30-minute samples of songs to your friends through Messenger. You can access Spotify's entire catalog through the Spotify chatbot, and it's a great way to share songs amongst your friends with that bot. So countless other companies have delivered bots. Pizza Hut, Fandango, Staples are all jumping on the bot craze. So it's commonly seen in the B2C world. Now, an aspect of bots that you might not think of immediately is in the business to employee world. So thinking of where you want to check the status of your Jira ticket, or you want to submit a new IT ticket, or you might want to have a bot be a virtual assistant of your marketing team, or it can be integrated into inbound marketing solutions to provide prescriptive analytics, where it can recommend a certain number of actions based on what's occurring as part of a campaign, or as predictive analytics, where it can immediately take an action based on some outcome that's occurring in a marketing platform. We can also see it in the IT space, as well as sales, to connect to CRM to relay any relevant information. Now, for those of you who are here this week, one interesting thing that's come out in the Kinvey platform is our micro apps capability. So think of the ability to submit expense reports, to check on tickets, do all of these HR type processes for a big enterprise through a mobile app. So I encourage you to go visit our micro apps talk, and chatbots can be embedded into micro apps so that you can ask questions, get frequently asked questions and answers, and you can also start up processes like expense reports and checking on tickets. Now in the B2B world, whenever I go to a enterprise software site, I always see in the bottom right-hand corner, I always see a bot there asking me if I need help. I think it's a little obtrusive because I feel better navigating around the site, but this is what Neil Parker at RewardStream had to say about his use of bots on their site. They had no issue getting people onto the site, but they had an issue of converting people once they're on the site. So they were able to increase their conversion a lot more by using a bot on their site that was able to reach out to people and see where they needed to get assistance in finding the content needed to access in order to convert as a customer. Tom Wentworth, who's a CMO at RapidMiner, he said the bot isn't about replacing a human. The bot for us is about augmenting and taking a user down a journey so that we can jump in at the right moment. So I think a lot of people might see bots as a way to replace customer service staff, but I think it should be perceived as a way to take care of repetitive tasks that could be completed in an automated way, and then transfer to a live operator for some of those high-touch customer cases. So today your chatbot needs might just be fulfilled by a B2C bot, or a B2E bot, or a B2B bot, but I think a lot of enterprises would benefit from a approach that takes care of all of these different scenarios, B2E, B2C, and B2B. So there's individual bot solutions out there that's geared towards each one. There's one that's great for lead generation. There's one that's great for marketing assistant type stuff. But what we've done as far as Kinvey Chat is try to build a horizontal bot development platform that can be used for a variety of different use cases. And we call it now Kinvey Chat, but Kinvey Chat was originally conceived as Darwin AI, and it was part of our Progress Labs business unit. Progress Labs is a pretty cool thing that Progress does. It gives our employees a chance to try out new technologies they've thought of, to get a team under their fold to try to build it out. So things such as blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality, micro apps I talked about earlier, and the Chatbot all came out of the Progress Labs business unit. We immediately saw the interest in Kinvey Chat. Customers were asking for demos, and there was a lot of interest in the Chatbot over the past year that I've been selling it. And we eventually rolled into the Kinvey platform, which I think really makes sense. In the development of Kinvey Chat, we had a choice to make. So what we ended up doing is we made the bot flexible enough to accommodate a variety of use cases, but we also made it straightforward enough so that we could keep you adhering to our best practices and so that you could develop bots quickly without having to pour through tons of documentation. So with that, it really functions well with using back-end services and cognitive services to connect the bot to, and that will allow you to connect it to your systems of record and your connected data that might live on the back end. So with Kinvey, we had the ability to provide this serverless cloud backend here in this first box, where you can build out business logic on the back end and hit those endpoints from your chatbot. So while Kinvey was pretty great in the mobile world, we've expanded our presence in the web and now into wearables, AR, VR, as well as chatbots. So I want to go over, before I get into the actual demo of Kinvey Chat and how it's configured and what it can do, I want to talk about why we took the approach we did in developing it and the way we did. And I'm going to walk through a scenario as far as what we saw as what's holding companies back when using traditional chatbot technologies. So here's Mark, is my neighbor. He's my neighbor in Seattle, and he's a pretty busy guy. He has a couple daughters who play soccer, and he's always at his daughter's soccer games on the weekend. He also travels a lot for work, and he's looking to book a flight to London for Wednesday. And he's accessing the chatbot through his corporate travel portal. Now, the chatbot is unable to understand his intent. Obviously, it's a pretty loaded expression. He wants to book a flight, the process. He knows where he wants to go. It's to London, and he wants to go on a certain date, Wednesday. But the bot's used to going down a determined path where it's going to ask each question in a sequence in order to get the information it needs to recommend or book a trip for Mark. So Mark's got to go through this process again. He's got to let the bot know where he wants to go and then when he wants to take the trip, and he has to repeat himself over and over again through this process. And he also has to format the date in a specific way so that the bot can understand. So then he repeats himself as the date. And then in the meantime, the soccer game's going on, and his daughter has gotten a yellow card for pulling some other girl's hair, and his parents are going crazy. People have lost track. And Mark has actually made a mistake. He said that he meant to say May 15th. 2019. But at this point, this is where a lot of bots fall apart, is they can't accommodate changes of intent. So the bot doesn't understand that this doesn't make a valid response to how many people are going to be going on the trip, and it asks them to start over. So this is commonly what we see with chatbots that are limited by these predefined paths that are set by developers. So with traditional chatbot technologies, what our product team saw was that a use of imperative languages kept bots going down this procedural approach. And they also saw that fixed decision trees describing them in code really made it tough to maintain and develop these chatbots. Our development team from the beginning took the approach that they did that was not based on decision trees, but I think just for the fun of it, they tried to create a bot process using a decision tree, and that diagram on the right is what they came up with. So there's really no way to, I mean, I guess there could be a way, but it's going to be pretty tough to maintain that decision tree based logic, to make changes to it, and then expect it to operate as it did in the past. So there'd be a lot of regression testing to make sure you didn't break anything when you introduce a new decision, and it's going to be pretty cumbersome to develop. So with Kinvey Chat, what the team did is they decided to describe the process your bot can support as conversations. So it's going to have, each conversation is going to have a goal, and that goal is going to be signing you up for a new plan, or answering one of your questions, or finding you the best route for a trip. So that's kind of how we created the chatbot, is using a JSON schema, using JSON to define the processes the chatbot can support. We also provide the chatbot with FAQs, so at any time in the chatbot flow, you can ask the bot a question, and the bot will respond accordingly, according to what you've trained the bot to respond with. And what we'll see a little bit later is our cognitive flow technology, which is using JSON to describe the flow of the conversation. Another thing that is pretty powerful about chatbots and channels in general is the ability to bring in external data. So I think that's what you've seen from this morning's presentation, is the ability to wrap APIs around commonly used backend systems, and Kinvey Chat's no different. So with Kinvey Chat, we're focused on being able to bring in data, external data, exposed via REST API, which you can post data to APIs and retrieve data from APIs. You can also perform training on enterprise data. So let's say you have a list of insurance policies and you want to make those as recognizable from a expression entered in the bot. You can train your bot to understand those different plans by integrating it with one of your back-end systems. All right, so let's see it in action now. So here we are on the bots.kinvey.com, and so anybody can access this URL, and it's accessed through your Kinvey account. Now, for those of you who don't have a Kinvey account, you can sign up. There's a developer trial license where you can get access to the Kinvey platform, as well as our chatbot platform as well. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my Kinvey account, and in the dashboard here is where you're going to see all the bots. These are all the bots that I've configured and have worked with in the past. You can also access your other Kinvey services like Studio and the back end using that top right-hand navigation. Now in the dashboard here, I'm going to create a new bot. This new bot's going to be based in English, but we have the choice to use up to 72 languages and use NLP. Now our product team enables languages where customers ask for them. So these are the languages that we've had interest in so far in the past year. So go ahead and choose English, and really how we do this is we use a NLP engine that was built by Facebook called Wit AI, which allows us to provide all the NLP in those different languages. Now we have different samples to choose from when creating a bot. So we have the blank bot, we have a book a doctor sample, and the insurance agent sample. We also have some more samples available on GitHub as well. I'll go ahead and choose the insurance agent sample and click create to create the bot. Now at this point, the sample is going to be creating some sample training as well as creating the example flow. So once this bot is created, I'm going to be dropped into the flow of the bot, and we'll see that's all configured in JSON, and we see all the conversations being defined right there. So the editor is going to allow you to edit the flow in a straightforward way. It's going to keep you adhering to our best practices, and it provides a way to validate the bot flow at design time. All right, so we saw the cognitive flow show up in that last screen. So cognitive flow is our way of describing conversations in a structured format. Steps are used to describe a process. The steps don't need to occur in a linear format. The steps instead are used as a guide for the bot as far as what information it needs to obtain in order to complete the business process. Bots can support multiple conversations, and actually we recommend chunking out your bot into multiple conversations because multiple conversations might need to reuse the same logic. An example here is a trip planner bot might need to use the select on map subflow, which could also be used to find the next bus as well. So having that modularity helps you to create reusable conversations within the cognitive flow. The flow is described in JSON, and we leverage the Monaco text editor, the same editor that's used in Visual Studio. So here's the cognitive flow. And what you'll see here is the Monaco text editor for configuring all the conversations and the steps. You see those showing up on the left-hand side. The left-hand nav is able to pull out the conversations and the steps, and I can also navigate through any of these conversations and steps by clicking on a particular item. I can also use the navigator on the right-hand side to zoom in on an area within the cognitive flow. And then I can also use any of the hover help items or the syntax suggestions here within the editor. So if you're ever curious about what different types of steps you can configure, you can use the suggestions there. We also have the hover help, so I can hover over a certain entity and I can see what it actually means. And we have auto formatting and different capabilities as well within the text editor. So within each conversation, you're going to see different steps. You're also going to see things such as validations and reactions to certain questions. These are going to allow the bot to really make sure it's understanding the customer correctly. So with the validations and suggestions and acknowledgments, you can really acknowledge that you truly understood what the user said, and you can validate things such as age. Now here at the bottom, we're going to use what's called a webhook. Now a webhook's used to retrieve external data. So you're not going to be writing any code within the chatbot configuration flow, but instead you're going to be using a webhook step and specifying the endpoint and the type of method and any of the payload parameters or header parameters. So there's also the ability to present any choices as well with any of the web services. So you can have the choices that a user can select and have that be driven by a web service call. So one of the great things about Kinvey Chat is the ability to test the bot. So when I'm configuring a bot, developing on it, there's a lot of times where the bot understanding is not what I anticipated it to be, or I want to test some different expressions on it and see if the bot reacts how I thought it would. So we have a console to test the conversations. It's where you're going to conduct a conversation with the bot, and you can observe the bot's processing at each step of the way. We have the ability to test this in Messenger as well. So let's jump into the console here, and we can take this insurance agent sample bot for a spin. So at the top bar there, you'll see our test dropdown. In the test dropdown, I can choose to test it in the console or test it in Messenger. I'll choose a test in console option, and that will open up a new window where I can now initiate a real conversation with the chatbot. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see my conversation with the bot, and on the right-hand side, you're going to see the console, which is going to be the bot's understanding of all the expressions I've inputted. So first, the bot's going to present me with the business processes that it can fulfill. New insurance, filling a claim, or contacting the operator. Now I could go over and click one of the items there and have the bot take me down the process of creating a new insurance policy for me. But like marked in the previous example, I'm going to enter in my intent here and see if the bot can understand what I'm trying to get it to do. So in this case, I want health insurance for a ski trip to Italy on March 19th. And the bot's going to realize a few things. It's going to acknowledge understanding. So with any of these entities, and entities are going to be what we extract from the expression, that being health insurance, ski trip, the destination is Italy, and the start date is March 19th. With any of these entities, the chatbot's able to provide acknowledgement. So it's able to acknowledge that, yes, you want to go to Italy, yes, it's on March 19th, and yes, you're going for a ski trip. You'll also notice there's a confidence level associated with each of the entities where the bot's determining how certain it is that the user is intending for that specific action. So anything above a 65% confidence level is going to allow the bot to continue. So at this point, the bot's determining the information that's still left to collect. In that case, it's going to be the age, and we see a validation occur here where I failed the validation for being over 18 years old. And now the bot's going to go ahead and collect all the other information it needs in order to recommend the insurance policy. And I'll go ahead and enter all of those different options there. You'll also notice I have the ability to express dates and times in different ways. So I can say next Wednesday, express a date in a certain way. And we also have different ways of picking, selecting items in here. So I could choose my country, and you'll see some different examples of prompts showing up later on. Now, the problem with this prompt here is I'm from Zimbabwe, so I don't have to scroll down to the bottom of the list. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that into the expression box there. And the bot, because it's been trained on the different countries, is able to immediately recognize that. So one important thing that the bot does here is it's going to confirm all the entities before it goes and either creates an insurance plan or recommends one for me. And that could be a web service call that might incur some costs. So I'm just going to make sure that I have all the entities entered in the right way. So instead here I made a mistake. I wanted my start date to be March 18th. And let's say also I don't want to click one of those entities, and instead I want to change my intent with expressing it in the expression area. I'll say that instead I want to go to Switzerland and see the Matterhorn and ski in the Alps there instead. So now I can confirm or select the value, and everything looks good at this point, so go ahead and confirm. And then now the bot's going to make a web service call out and retrieve all the applicable insurance policies that apply to everything that I told it. Health insurance, Switzerland, March 18th to March 23rd, and it's going to present those in a carousel format. So there's different ways and templates to present options to the user. I'll go and select that medical insurance, and then now the bot will present me with the details. So we have a way of formatting API responses. A lot of times API responses aren't going to come out in clean lists like this. So I can loop through all the rows with a for each selector, and I can add in new lines as well, so I can get the formatting of the message the way I want it to. Now, do I want to sign up for this plan? I'll go ahead and choose yes. And before, I didn't mention this, is the bot has what's called short-term and long-term memory. So short-term memory is going to be memory that's part of a specific conversation. So after this goal of this conversation is fulfilled, the short-term memory is erased. But things such as emails and phone numbers can be stored in long-term memory so that when you come back to the bot can remember who you are and not have to ask you this information. We also realize that compliance is a big deal, GDPR compliant, so you have the ability to not store any data and not remember any data about the customer either. The bot can also support small talk as well. So if I tell the bot, thank you for making the process relatively seamless, then we'll see a response here that the bot says anytime. So there's an ability for the bot to engage in small talk, and hopefully maybe someday one of these bots can pass a Turing test. All right, so we saw how the bot was able to understand intent through the training. This is how the NLP training works. So a few things at work here is conversation identification. Based on the phrase you enter, the bot can understand what business process you're trying to accomplish, and also entities. So things such as your age and your start date and where you're trying to go, those are all entities that we are capturing in the short-term memory. The training can be done dynamically, so that's via calling a web service to bring in some data that you might want to recognize that a user inputs. And you can also import training data, so you can export training data in JSON and import it as well. So let's go ahead this time and start a new conversation, and I'll do that through the console again there. And we're going to walk through how it can the bot can be trained with some of these inputs. So first I'm going to go ahead and type in that I want to fill a claim, and then the bot's going to respond and say, hey, we realized that we've understood at a 99.67% certainty level that you want to direct to the fill claim conversation. Now it's going to go through obtaining all necessary information for that fill claim conversation. Do I require any immediate medical assistance? I think I'm okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select no. And it's going to walk me down the process of filling that claim. Have I obtained all necessary documents? Well, I'm not really sure what are the necessary documents, so I'm going to ask a question here, and hopefully I have the bot trained with the FAQ so that it can respond. So in this case, this matches a claim documents FAQ. I'm going to provide that answer, and then I'm also going to continue on the business process of trying to complete that process. So the bot will pick up where it left off and try to get you down that road of completing this fill claim conversation. So I have obtained all necessary documents, and now I'll enter my insurance number and the total amount that I claim. Now, can you take a picture of your billed amount? So this is where I can look at, take a picture of my billed amount and select OK. And now the bot's going to do image recognition and validation on this and check that did I indeed receive a picture of a billed amount. So instead here, I submitted a picture of my broken oven fan that I had sitting on my computer, and that was an appliance picture. And so that bot has let me know that and said that instead I'm going to need that actual picture. So in the training tab here, what we have is built-in entity types. This is what allows me to express a date in different ways, such as a month, day, year, or tomorrow, or Monday, the time, the date, time, and files and locations via a location picker that will open up in the chatbot. Here are some of the entity types that I've entered, such as make insurance, contact operator, and fill claim. And these are the expressions that the bot is trained to respond to. A little technical difficulties there. Let's see if I can start that up again. All right. So the insurance plan is a different type of entity, and that's where a training is driven by external API. So we see a REST API call here, and we see any of the headers and payload being passed in here as well. Now the idea here is that I get a name attribute passed back, and I'm going to train the bot on the name that's coming back in the response. So if I test that call, what I'm going to get here is the different health insurance plans that I can recognize as an expression that someone enters in the bot. Regular expression is going to allow me to recognize an insurance number that's expressed in a certain pattern. So at any time if the user expresses a pattern in that way, then it'll recognize it as an insurance number and store it as an entity in the short-term memory. And the FAQ is a way that I can respond to frequently asked questions and have the answers supplied there at the bottom. Now, the All Entities tab, if I go back there, it gives you a way to test the understanding of the bot. So at any time here, I can go in here and type in some phrases, and I can see insurance plan, and how does that relate to it. It looks like a certainty level of 85% in there, and so it will match up to that make insurance conversation. All right, so the last portion I want to go over, or the second to last portion, excuse me, is history and analytics. So we saw at first with the console how you can debug the conversation, you can see the bot's understanding, and you can change the flow accordingly in the training according to what you've seen in the console. The user message log and the analytics also gives you a good way to optimize the bot. So we have a log of all the user messages. You can see the bot understanding at each step in the conversation, and you can also see real-time reports such as retention, understanding, which is useful for debugging and improving the performance of your bot. So we have here is the history tab, and I'm going to go ahead and drill down into a specific message in this conversation. And on the right-hand side, we see the message context when I click one of those steps. So also along with the entities that we capture, we also keep information about the user in the system. So we can keep track of the locale of the person using the bot in, as well as information about the user and their time zone. And at the bottom here in the message context, we can see information about all the entities that I've captured so far in the conversation. And this validation step for the picture that I attached, we'll see how the validation's working as far as what labels it tagged it as, and how it recognized the attachment as a file and how it processed it accordingly. The historical data can be exported via JSON, and that way you can read through it or import it into another tool. Now the analytics tab is where you can see the real-time analytics data. So this takes a little bit of time to load, it's because it's real time, and you can see retention of the bot, understanding. You can see where understanding might have fallen off, where sessions might have been abandoned, and you can also see interactions. So the analytics tab is a good spot where you can see how the bot might perform better based on the training or based on the flow. So both the history and analytics tab along with the bot console are great debugging tools to make sure your bot is functioning as you had hoped. All right, so the last thing I want to go over with Kinvey Chat is bot publication. The bot can be published to web apps, mobile apps, Facebook Messenger, and Viber. So this provides a lot of flexibility in how you deploy the bot. It's one configuration, and once you save that configuration, that's going to be immediately available in all the different channels that it's deployed to. So in the publication tab is where you're going to have the ability to deploy it in all these channels, and you'll see I have this published on a website widget and in the mobile app. And I could also choose to publish it on Facebook Messenger and Viber as well. The instructions are included on the configuration area. So for including a website widget, we have some embed markup that you would put in your HTML. And with the website widget, there's a lot of flexibility in how you can display the bot. You can have it be in a modal window or inline. You can change the styling of the bot. So there's lots of flexibility in how you might want to have the bot meet your brand guidelines. So also we have a NativeScript plugin for deploying the bot on NativeScript apps, and you can also publish them onto mobile apps as well. So I hope you've gotten a good understanding of the bot and the approach that we took on it. We thought that the ability to provide flexible markup and schema layer was important, but also having the Kinvey backend to create business logic scripts allows you to separate the configuration from the code. I'd like to go over now a few customer use cases. So we've seen some legitimate interest in the Chatbot platform over the past year. And we've seen in a few different industries, so it's a pretty horizontal solution. We've seen it in healthcare and transportation and in the finance industry as well. So one of the largest health systems in Brazil is using us as a hospital booking appointment bot. This is also being used as a transportation assistant in Texas for booking planning trips or finding your next bus that you might need to take based on where you are. And it's also going to be used as a virtual assistant for managing defaults for the financial sector. One of our earliest use cases of native chat was at the Dr. Stareb Hospital. And this resulted in a lot less calls for booking appointments. People were able to do this through the app. They deployed it on the Viber platform. So it was something where they could have their full-time employees handle the more high-touch customers that needed more help. So the virtual assistant worked well for the Dr. Shterov Hospital, and it provided a lot of ROI and investment savings for them. So it was a lot cheaper, it was a lot faster than doing it themselves, and there's a nice quote from the marketing director at the hospital. So the roadmap for the chatbot solution is pretty exciting. We've got some good feedback from customers. We have our product manager, Bulent, in the back there. So he's been working with me and our team and how we make the bot perform for all of our customers and prospects. And two of the more exciting things I pulled out here were voice chat support. So this is, I'm sure everybody might have used Alexa or Google Home, and so we're looking to add that capability into Kinvey Chat. Another cool roadmap feature is sentiment analysis. So calling an external service based on what you enter in and based on your language and trying to get a feeling for how that customer is feeling at that moment. And so that way the bot can respond accordingly. Let's say if they're a very angry customer, you might want to involve customer service, and you might want the bot to respond in different ways depending on their sentiment. So thanks for your time today. There's some great sessions going on as well. I know right now my colleagues doing one on offline data across the hallway, and we've got Sebastian doing one, I think tomorrow, on creating a chatbot from scratch. So this is something you want to dive into. I encourage you to visit those sessions and get a deeper feel for Kinvey Chat, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.